meeting. And so at this time, I'm going to ask our technical team to help us move into our virtual space for our discussion around the meeting in March.
Hello, all. Welcome. So really, we want to know from HAAB members if we got it right. It's good to see some of y'all again, Mr. Washington. I see you up there in the corner. We just really want to know, did we get it right? What we were just reflected in those slides, and can we pull some of that and put it in the chat so folks can see it again? Taylor, is that something you, or sorry, Tiffany, is that something you have access to?
I think I can pull that up. Hold on. I have it as a PDF.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So do these match what y'all were talking about last month around priorities? Anything we missed or anything that you want to add that you don't see here?
Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of aggregate data lately and about the Albina district and all that. And, for some odd reason, it never seems to be mentioned in there, the whole issue around business legacy, okay? And the whole issue of business. Okay, it wasn't that these places were some island where community businesses didn't exist. I mean, and we keep acting as if just building housing and education is the solution to a thriving community. And we're mistaken by that. And I don't know how much more advocacy and lobbying I need to do to get this part of it added to this equation. So I'd like to advocate to have business ownership and reconciliation around business ownership and small business legacy.
Thank you. And we have folks taking note. I think it needs to be more explicit than the term economic ecosystem is what I'm hearing, Mr. Washington. So we can add that. Thank you. Any other HAAB members?
Yeah, I think we're missing a technical question about ventilation, which is going to be an important part of making sure that the all the dirty air that gets trapped in the tunnel from cars passing through it, cars getting stuck idling in the middle of the tunnel is actually being properly dealt with and filtered. So I would say maybe ventilation and filtration would be a question that I'd like to see moving forward.
Thank you, JT. And I'm seeing head nods from some of the folks on our technical team on that one. Mr. Posey.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, yeah, I'm at the over at the NAACP office. I had a hard time getting on. For some reason, I'm not getting the link. I had to go here and there. I'm all thumbs, I guess, technically. I want to just add to what John has said. I don't think it's any secret that I'm concerned about how this really all plays out for the Black community. And I'm looking for some sort of mechanism within this process to really keep track of where the money is going on a quarterly, monthly basis. I don't think it's any secret that I feel like many of this stuff that we're doing here won't necessarily translate into any real economic benefit to our community. And so as a component of what we're doing here, I would like to see some tracking, some sort of auditing, some sort of real-time expression of where this money is going to. We're talking $450 million that's going to come to this community. And I'm already concerned that that front end money, that 38 million, is going to get in the hands of some technocrats and some bureaucrats who have been pushing this agenda, and no real money is going to fall out on the ground for Black people. So, I mean, in order to allay my fears, I want to see something in this system built in so this particular committee can track where the money is going to. And I want to see it like SCI or something. I want to see it intrinsically looking at who's really getting this money and where and how, and whether or not it is genuinely going towards some wealth building proposition. And I don't know how to frame that. I don't know what you guys need to do. I've begged and pleaded that Megan and all the rest of ODOT put some economists in this mix so we can see, and we should have an economist report and talk about how we leverage this money. And I think you all are all involved in the technical aspects, et cetera, but I'm really interested in whether or not this resources that come to this community is going to empower our community for the long haul, and quite frankly, make up for some of the crap we've had to deal with over the last several decades. That should be high on the priority, is healing and putting us in a position where we can be competitive in future markets, especially around this building and construction related stuff. So anyway, I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of like John, I'm kind of out of breath talking about this, but I'm not going to be satisfied until we see something that monitors this money and where it's going to in some real expressive way. So I'm going to shut up at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. And I heard two things in that. One is the money tracking and where it's going, but also the workforce opportunities. So the actual people and folks getting into these jobs. So there's two pipelines as well. And I wonder, Carrie, if there isn't something around the public facing dashboard. I think the 205 project has some good examples that we could maybe pull from.
And I was thinking the same thing. So we'll add this to the to-do list.
So let me just hasten to say, even if we were to do everything right and we were to have equity, et cetera, all the nice little key words, I think you all know that our community is in a hole. We don't have the sort of capacity to take advantage at this particular point in time of some of these opportunities. And that y'all kind of letting that slide by as far as I'm concerned. And so you want to acknowledge that on the front end and talk about how you build capacity and what kind of alternatives, what kind of interventions you are going to take on the front end to address these deficits in our community's ability to take advantage of these opportunities. Y'all are just kind of like glossing over this. This is not fun for me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and James, I'm going to piggyback with James. I'm sorry to just interrupt. I mean, I've been taxing my brain constantly, trying to look at how do we get the money off the 30th floor down onto the street level, and constantly looking at economic development in such a way that there's no sense of believing that people have legacies or they want to leave a legacy. I went to a funeral today about the same thing, about people dying. We don't even have the social welfare capacity to look at these things, that how we going to build people instead of buildings. How are we going to advance the trauma-informed realities that people are experiencing that keep them stuck? You can build all these elaborate constructs, but if we don't have the people that are in the right mind frame to receive opportunities in these constructs, in these spaces, then what are we really doing? Just building monuments? So I think it's a bigger picture when we talk about restorative justice. We're just not looking at economics. And I'm tired of being hoodwinked with the issue of economics. Don't get me wrong, I like money. Okay, but I don't think that's always the primary focus. I think it's an added bonus to something more significant, and that's about the human development aspect of people being able to receive these gifts instead of just being able to build the gift.
Thank you both. I do think we can share some examples of how that's being tracked and showing up both in, again, the economics and how money is being spent, but also in workforce and how human beings are getting access to economic opportunity for themselves, but the impact that has on families when they have family wage jobs. I want to make sure to open space for our HAAB members who haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Well, I don't usually jump in on the economics, but I'm gonna add some context, at least as far as from my standpoint, and even as a, because it relates to housing. So HUD just recently increased the 100% AMI for Portland for a family of 4 is $116,000. The average
16, Leslie, or 60?
116,
Got you.
$116,000. The average Black family in Portland in 2022 was making $48,000 a year. So that puts them at 41% of AMI. So they're making too much for a 30% unit and not enough for a 60% unit. So if they get into a 60% unit, they're rent burdened. And we have, what can we do? I work for the Housing Bureau. So we build boxes, we build units for people to move into. Currently, we build 30% units and 60% units and 80% units, which, Black folks don't even have a chance at qualifying for an 80% unit when they're at 41%. So I echo the need for us to use this as an opportunity to help some Black folks improve their economic standing, because right now, all I see is that Black people are falling further and farther. I'm not sure which one is the appropriate terminology.
Further.
And I've had a long day. I don't know that I really care, but they're far behind everybody else. So just to give you an example, for Hispanic and Latinx, they're at $69,000. American Indians, and we know what happened to American Indians in this country, they're at $60,529. We are the lowest of all ethnic groups, racial and ethnic groups, including folks that are 2 or more races or some other race. We are the absolute lowest as far as economics go. And at some point, folks will not even be able to afford the units that we're building in Northeast Portland for people to move back into, for them to be able to move back into Northeast Portland. So this project needs to ensure that we're doing something to assist with people that live in this neighborhood to improve their economic circumstances. And I don't know how you write that, but I just, when I got those HUD numbers the other day, I about bust a gasket, because they have increased it every year by 2%. And it's not because of us, it's because of everybody else. So I'll let it go at that, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Go ahead, Mr. Posey.
So those numbers that that Leslie just shared is confirmed with just about every demographic data that's fallen out on the street. We're not, we're not making any progress, y'all. I mean, the State of Black America nationally, the BBC report that was just done about the absence of participation for Blacks in construction and contractors in business. It's pathetic. And, you know, I say the house is on fire. And what we've been doing with this HAAB, we got a water hose out here. We ain't even got a sprinkler system to put out this fire. And y'all got to come with something better than this. You got to come with an aggressive, robust plan to address this. And I'm not seeing any interventions. I'm not even seeing any creative concepts about how we change this bleak, very bleak picture and how we tie this. And listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not seeing any creative juices about how we change this paradigm that is driving us off the cliff. So I'm not just saying this just to, you know, pump stuff up. You know, we're smarter than this. We're better than this, as somebody used to say. So let's come up with something. Let's build something into this process that we can categorically change the course of the direction that we're going, and we can put our finger on it. We can touch it. Come on, y'all. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. I want to go to Bryson. We have about 5 minutes left. I'll come back to you, Mr. Washington. I just want to go to folks who haven't had a chance yet first.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what James was saying. I mean, it feels a little bit throughout this process that ODOT is kind of leaning on AVT to be really the main source of economic benefit for the Black community on the project, and just hasn't done enough bringing its own ideas to the table for how to get what we need out of this. And I mean, I don't know if it's going to be, if we just don't have the staff expertise to do it, but I definitely think that kind of, again, the direction that James was saying, we need more answers, and we need more proposals and more solutions in that direction.
Thank you, Bryson. Mr. Washington and then JT.
Yeah, you know, we've been looking at some aggregate numbers also. And you know and it's kind of ironic too, Leslie, you're gonna like this one. Joe Cartwright wrote some stuff about what we're talking about right now. But I won't allude to it, but I think this whole idea of building toward the future, I think it's ludicrous for us to believe that we're not creating a void or deficiency while trying to get there. And not by us not taking a look at the present day situation and looking at how we can continue to reinforce a grade or a foundation so nothing falls through any worse. It doesn't get worse as we're moving toward the future. So the reality is we have to carry some of this damage, prevent some of this damage from moving forward with us. And if we're not looking at what the present state of consciousness is, along with looking at the future consciousness, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Thank you. Go ahead, JT.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's not that I don't disagree with anything anybody said here, but I do think we're conflating two different processes, and that is the slightly frustrating part here. You know, ODOT's responsibility is not to develop the highway cover. That's not what any of this money is going towards. This money will be going towards building a highway cover, and then they have to figure out a process for figuring out who then develops what's on top of the cover. And a lot of the input and feedback that we give centers around what gets developed on the cover, without us fully understanding that's not the step of the process that we're even at right now. But there are of course, like significant implications to the work that we had the opportunity to do here. Like these technical questions we're answering, or technical questions that we should be answering or weighing in on or seeking input on or seeking additional information on, will determine what we can or can't build on the eventual covers. But again, like I think it's important that we remind ourselves of Oh, it says the breakout room is about to close. I just think it's so important that we remind ourselves of like what ODOT's job here is. They're not economic developers. They are a highway agency, and they're here to build a cover. So I don't know, just making sure that we're focusing our feedback, because I feel like we kind of go in loops on this sometimes.
Thanks,
will like to-
JT. And I see your comment in the chat too, Leslie.
Yeah.
In May. So at this time, we're going to shift into our breakout rooms for just 10 minutes.
All right. Hello again.
Welcome back. So we want to spend our time really thinking about what else you might care about or want to know about, and what do you need to know to answer this question in May? And we've got Carrie here to help if there's any particular questions that might come up as well.
Mr. Posey, you've got your hand up. You're on mute.
So I'm a little lost, I'm a little disoriented here. We have a question about the technical items that was just presented. Is that where we are?
Yes, Tiffany, could you go ahead and pull up those slides? Thank you.
Yeah, concerns. So I'm probably the only one in here that feels very uncomfortable talking precisely about these technical items. Maybe I'm the only one that I'm all glossed over in terms of many of these technical items. And I mean, I know, as you all want our comments and so on, but I don't have no background, no history in what a bridge, what, these items look like in terms of capacity, whether or not they're meeting various specs that that's aligned with industry standards, et cetera, et cetera. And, I'm kind of going back to what JT was talking about earlier, as my expertise and my ability to give input into this process is based upon my relationship to the community and not a technical aspect of where we're trying to go. So y'all explain to me, I mean, because I agree with JT, ODOT, and you guys are builders, and your main function, what you do and do best, is to build highways and stuff. So explain to me. Yeah, explain to me, really. Help me out, would you?
I think, Mr. Posey, for example, the workforce development and employment opportunities, I've heard you in other meetings say that you actually want to see that data disaggregated in multiple ways so that it's not just DBEs, but we're breaking down what are the different identities of those agencies. Is it women? Is it Black women, white women, all the disaggregation? And that's not a clarity that we have on this. So that would be an example to me of something that I could see you adding to or wanting to see added to this context as it's moving forward.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing for me is in all these specialties, whether it be the architectural or whether it be in the equipment and the supply and all those things that have to do with the aggregate you're going to use inside of these things, the thing that rushes to my head is to whether or not there are any people of color who have expertise in those areas and whether or not we are building pathways to build expertise in those areas, because what I've asked for and have not received it is for every technical aspect of how this I-5 expansion is built, that you also adjacently attach what those skill sets. In fact, I talked to you all about NACE codes that are aligned with every technical aspect of this building. And yet, I mean, that's falling on deaf ears. Do you all understand what I'm saying to you all? Well, we don't have anybody in the queue who has the wherewithal to even participate in this process at the level I think you all are expecting. Do you all understand what I'm saying? Maybe I'm all wrong here.
Nope, I think we got you.
Yeah.
I do want to give Sprinna a chance to speak, and then I think JT was going to say something as well.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I wasn't. I just dropped my phone and made a loud noise.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead, Sprinna.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. So I'm just thinking about this question here, the considerations to help us move into 30% design. And I'm just reflecting on the the city council meeting earlier this week and the city coming back to the table. And so I guess my questions are, what are the key questions, decision-making points, points of tension that we have with the city bureau, city decision makers that we need their input on at this point in time? So I think if we could get a little bit more clarity on that. And then I'm also thinking about the air quality, the pollution, the traffic patterns and plans. And so if there basically any information from new stakeholders like the city, like RIF City Management, things that we need to consider at this point in time in design, and then anything around traffic control and environmental impacts, aspects of the design of the cover that we need to discuss now. That's what I'm interested in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, Carrie, some of it's the kind of those PET, those technical skills around that Mr. Posey was speaking to as well, that I want to make sure we capture.
I agree with that, we're going to add that to our to-do list. We'll reach into, you know, the A&E and the OR team and come back with who's working on the project.
And then how there's mentorship or internship or other opportunities for Black folks to get into that pipeline. We've just
Great.
a couple of minutes left. Anyone else? Sorry, was that Mr. Washington?
No, that was me.
Oh, sorry, Carrie.
But these list
Anything-
of considerations that are on here are the ones that are on here. They're not just examples, right?
Those are what we've heard just from HAAB to date. But Carrie, I would look to you. There's additional considerations that you all are using, correct?
That is correct. You know, there is the the nuts and bolts of putting together a 30% design, but these are some of the questions that are going to require a fair amount of research time, but we're happy to do it. For example, long and short-term land use programming and governance. The city and the project team we're just barely beginning those discussions right now, but we're already thinking of those things. I know that human health, including air quality and noise on the cover, the HAAB had brought that forward a couple of months ago, and you know,
Right. I suggested it a couple months
yeah,
back.
you did, and okay, so just as a kind of a segue to that, the A&E has been instructed to advance a study of that, and they're getting themselves organized for that. So those are, you know, these things, sometimes they take time and they move at different paces, but I operate off of the to-do list, and that's what I view this as. We need to answer these questions for the HAAB.
Didn't you answer that question? No, there was something that in one of our past meetings where that was answered.
We talked about air quality around the cover, but it was at a very high level, and we agreed that we're going to go back and do a more in-depth study of like what the state of the practice is. and what other covers are doing of this length and so forth. And then bring it back for a discussion. So we have more work to do on that, Mr. Washington.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. And also, economic finding and feasibility of development. As we have talked about that before, and you have been introduced to Eco Northwest, they've been attending the HAAB meetings. They're about ready to embark on a study of the cover of what it would mean to put a building on the cover, what it's going to cost in a sense.
Thank you, Carrie. And I know we're looking to get scheduled a presentation from the IVR workforce study that could help inform what the Rose Quarter Project does around workforce equity and the economic opportunity components to get folks into not just construction, but also those technical trainings, those technical positions as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. We're going to be
Thank you.
Snatched back into the main room here in just a second.
If you would avail yourself, we're going to head into our breakout rooms.
All right. Carrie, I think Erica said that Brendan would be in the breakout room, but I think he might be in the other breakout room. Are you our ODOT rep? Your computer is not, I don't know if you tried to unmute, but it is not working.
I'm sorry, I was having a whole conversation with myself. Yes, I think that Brendan got into the other breakout room. Let me
Mr. Washington, is it an ODOT question or is it a specific Brendan question? Because we can ask now or we can also have it come back.
Well, he made a statement earlier that I don't know if it was just in passing he made it, that he selected from the HAAB Modique to support to be the HAAB representative with this issue with AVT. And I was just curious as to how did he just do that? So I'm just curious as to how that came about.
Thank you. Carrie, do you know how selection of HAAB representation was made?
I think that it was a consultation and a request. I mean, with the communication group, ask him. So
okay, we'll find that out for you, Mr. Washington.
Okay,
Yeah,
and the other one.
Oh, my fault. I was just gonna say for clarity, I also, we don't know on this end how that selection took place. We didn't have any input on that.
Yeah.
Thanks, JT.
So I
And then
know.
the other part was, as I was listening to that conversation about what went on down there in Medford, my understanding of the language was that they weren't given this reality. It was another piece of language that was used. What was the language that was used? Were they granted something, or what was the actual grant?
JT,
from the committee to ATV?
So there was nothing that was granted. No rights were conferred. Yeah. So the resolution had two pieces. The first was to establish a work plan to explore governance of the highway cover, basically to have as comprehensive an understanding of all the possibilities that exist given the current constraints of the law. And then the second piece of that was the OTC directed ODOT to work towards, to put towards that work plan, to put that work plan forward with the intention of working towards the outcome of AVT eventually obtaining air rights, development rights over the cap. So it set an intention as well as establishing a work plan.
And then what was it that the city reinforced about that?
The same exact thing. So the city,
Okay.
the city basically reinforced the notion that that ABT obtaining air rights, development rights in the long term, if it's possible, would be the intended and hopeful outcome. But it's not certain whether that's even possible given the constraints of the law.
Thank you, JT.
Yep, no problem.
Any other HAB members have questions? I think, oh, go ahead, JT.
Sorry, Shannon. I was just going to say, and I know we've had this conversation, like many of us offline, but you know, we've been very, very transparent in what our objective is here as an organization. You know, in the ICA, it was very clearly stated that, and this was years ago, but it was very clearly stated that the CAP should be developed by a community-led CDC. And to us, it intuitively and practically feels like we're optimally positioned to fill that role. That is what we do. We're developers. And our entire development philosophy is 100% generated from the vision of the community. So, yeah, we're not going to try to run anybody through any hoops over here. Y'all should know 100% like what our goal is, and we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to have folks over. We're happy to talk through things, but just don't want anybody to think a game is getting ran on them. We try to be really transparent about what our hope is here.
Thanks, JT. And I think something kind of what I'm hearing underneath Mr. Washington's questions too is ensuring that whomever is working in developing the work plan, that there's a regular feedback loop to the HAB because no one person can represent all the perspectives. So I think if we can capture that in our notes as well and figure out offline how we can make sure to keep the HAB informed and have opportunities for folks to weigh in.
And at the same time, be cautious of white benevolence, you know? So I'm just a little bit curious as to, sometimes it seems like pathways are laid for things to occur. And, you know, and I think that if we do this group process kind of thing, I think that there's sometimes, even what happened when they went down there, it was a short range communication reality that it had an intention, but it didn't land. And Finn just did another one of those things that could potentially ignite an environment, because there seems to be missing steps. And so I'm just curious about how some of this stuff lays, because you know, it's just a question that I have, and I'd like an answer to it.
Mm-hmm. It's some of what I think Sprinna raised in the last conversation too, is like the who did, not only what are the decision points, but who decides and what is the timeline of those decisions happening, is something that we need to bring more transparency to, it sounds like. Anything else coming up for folks or questions about the resolution you want to ask ODOT, city, or ABT? JT, thanks for wearing two hats today.
Oh, yeah, of course.
All right. Well, we can please feel free to chime in if something comes up. And as JT said, if there's other questions that pop up or things you want to talk about outside of the HAB meeting, to just go ahead and reach out directly. And we'll make sure to capture all the notes from today and bring that back to the large group, but also into next step conversations. And I'm going to hang out here, but if folks are done, you can feel free to rejoin the big room. I'm a social worker. We sit in silence for very long periods of time, so I can just sit here. I'll be happy to restart the conversation if anything pops up for anyone.
What was the point of this breakout room? Was it that we were to discuss that?
Yeah, the resolution and any questions that folks may have about the resolution or some of those next steps about the work plan development.
I'll chime in. I don't really have any questions per se, but I just wanted to reflect for a minute. One, I just want to say how much I appreciate you, JT, for everything you shared and being put on the spot numerous times, out of sync, out of order, so to speak, in that meeting, and being able to speak so knowledgeably to where we are with this project and what AVT is asking for. Honestly, I was a bit surprised by some of the reflection statement by our city representatives. You know, I feel like Portland always gets this title of being a progressive city, but what it really means is that we're passive aggressive with racism. I've been spending the last 3 years living between Oregon and Texas, and I find that I run up much more against that insidiousness of like, wanting to be these progressives in Oregon than I do in Texas. And so I'm just wondering, and I guess maybe this is a question for JT or whomever, really, but I'm just thinking about how that conversation went and thinking about our uphill battle with people like the Cartwrights and other white folks who are looking at this project and really wanting to say like it's some type of only benefiting Black communities or charity work for us, when we know it's not the case. And I'm just wondering thoughts on how do we addressing that, countering that, paying no attention to it. Gosh, we only got 16 seconds left.
You asked
So
the
I'm gonna
biggest
ask
question too.
That's what I'm thinking about. And I'm still very much frustrated with the mayor and some of these council members like Gonzalez to have the audacity to say something that is